for those of you, everybody knows me, I'm pretty sure, just because I started the group, but I know that we just had about 9 new members join yesterday. So I'm going to put a shout out to them probably in a couple days as more people come in. But I did do a video of kind of my story and why I started this group. So please go back and kind of watch that so you have an idea of why I started this group and the importance of it and why I'm so passionate about it as a musician with an injury and now as a therapist. So today I met Andy. Andy is a wonderful therapist. I actually met him through a therapy entrepreneurs group. And he is an OT and a PT, so he's got dual licenses, which for those of you that know anything about getting your degree in OT or PT, it's a huge undertaking, and to get both is even huger. So, so it's a big deal. So it was awesome to meet him. When did we meet? Probably back in October? Maybe it was January.
When you just joined.
When I joined the
probably January.
Probably January,
Yeah.
So it's been awesome to get to know Andy, and Andy is a musician, right?
Used to be like I play piano when I was very little.
Yeah, but you have experience with music and you have a love for music, which is great. So you want to talk a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Andy Zan, and then like Heather said, I'm a practicing physical therapist and occupational therapist, and currently practicing in New York City. And then I also have a side hustle making videos for PTs and business owners, and then that's a online business. I do have a passion to serve the musician population because I feel like that's an area that's underserved, and then because of a lot of the personal relationship I have with a lot of musicians, either at church or at my personal life, I have a lot of connections with them, and then I know their needs, and so I really have a passion to help them. And I feel like it's also an area that's good for me to incorporate what I learned from PT and OT. It's a very good niche to combine both of them to serve this population. And so when Heather created this group, and I feel very interested, and so I joined. And then in order to know more about you guys, to know your needs, so that I can better serve you guys in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. I think it's hard too, and I think it's really good that you used to play, even though you're not playing now. You used to play an instrument, so you know what it's like to be a musician. And I think that's what a lot of musicians are looking for when they go into finding people to provide them healthcare services. Somebody that understands what it's like to be a musician. And there's courses that therapists can take out there that teach them how to treat musicians, but without really experiencing what it's like to be a musician and to play an instrument and to know the instruments, it's hard to really relate and really get it. And then especially as professional musicians, there's a whole nother level that goes into all of that, and the nuances of the instrument and the ergonomics and the understanding of the emotional aspect of it as well is really huge. So and then you're bringing in the PT aspect as well as the OT aspect, which is just huge, So I think that's awesome. So today we're going to talk about exercise, particularly Pilates, but I want to talk a little bit about the importance of exercise first, because I know when I was in conservatory and, all throughout, probably I really didn't start exercising until I had to stop playing, actually. So exercise is really, really, really important. And we all know that, right? Everybody knows that. But a lot of people just don't find time to do it, because are you going to choose exercise, or are you going to choose going to the practice room and practicing, right? Or playing a gig. And I know a lot of people are really busy with gigs and stuff like that and teaching. So it's hard to fit it in. I know it's hard for me to fit in with work and kids and owning a business. Andy, I know that you're really good about exercising. You're really good about fitting it in. And Andy's in the process of getting his Pilates instructor course certification, which is a huge undertaking, and he'll talk about that as well. But we know exercise is important because obviously it increases blood flow, it increases your cardiovascular health. Um, Huge one is, and I see this, and Andy, you can talk about this too, is that I see, I've been treating for 20 years, and I can tell you that as you age, the people that are exercising and that are active are aging much better, right, in general,
Yeah.
than the people that are not active. So if you want to age and be active in, your senior years and be able to get up and down off the floor with your grandkids and be able to play and be able to move and have as fewer aches and pains, it's really important to stay active and to do some form of exercise. And it doesn't have to be Pilates. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. It has to be some form of exercise. All right. And that's just is a huge, huge thing to help us age more gracefully. And then the other thing is stress management. And this is really big for musicians because the world of musicianship and being a professional musician is incredibly stressful. It's it's very intense. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and we need an outlet. We need an outlet for that stress management. And exercise is a great outlet. I think I just saw an article the other day that they're talking about replacing like antidepressants with exercise, prescribing exercise instead of antidepressants. So it's true. It's one of those things that really has been scientifically proven to help our stress management and to help us overall physically. And the big thing too is that the less stressed you are as a musician, the less tension you're going to have in your body. And a lot of times people don't even realize that they're stressed. Yesterday, I had a patient who's a double bass player and having a lot of issues in his thumb. And the reason is it's a technique thing and it's a stress thing, it's a habit thing. And he's got so much pressure that before he even is on his instrument, his hand is like hunkered down, totally hunkered down. But he wasn't even aware of it. He had no idea that that was what was happening. So again, stress is probably a likely component of why he is in that position as well. So, Anna, you have anything else to add as to why exercise is important?
Yeah, I would agree pretty much everything you said earlier, but then really it's like you mentioned about a good point. It's about like whenever you move, you improve circulation, and there are people like trying to research the cause of aging, and then a lot of the different theories or hypotheses point to like decreased circulation that's causing to like a lot of the aging process. So like exercise in general facilitates circulation, and then it can slow down the process and then make yourself stronger so that you can tolerate all the physical demands for everyday life. And then also the stress management is a big component, like you said as well, a very good outlet. And then just exercising itself, it causes some hormonal changes within your body. So in general, you would just feel happier when you just move around.
Get those endorphins going too. And I
Exactly.
think it also helps, as you sit down to play your instrument, because, when you're sitting at your instrument playing for, hours a day, you're in a stagnant position for the most part. You're moving within a smaller range of motion than your body is actually meant to go. So it's important to take your body and move it out of different positions, and exercise can do that, and especially Pilates. So I don't know a ton about Pilates. I'm extremely interested in it, and Andy and I kind of started talking about it. So I'm trying to find an exercise that really is much more honed in for musicians, and I do believe that Pilates is it could be definitely one of them and is one of them. Um, and I'm going to take some classes and learn a little bit more and torture myself with it. So Andy, first of all, if I know there's not anybody on right now, but in the comments section, if you watch the replay, just write #replay, and then also just let us know if anybody has ever taken Pilates, and kind of what your thoughts are and what type of Pilates did you take. So there's, from what I understand with Andy, there's three different levels of it. There's mat, there's the apparatus, and what was the other one, Andy?
Yeah. So equipment wise, you have mat without equipment, and then you have apparatus classes to use like either reformer or a chair or a tower Cadillac. So it's like a different combination of
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Mhm.
So just let us know in the comments if you've done Pilates and then kind of what aspect of Pilates that you've done. That would be great. So, Andy, tell us about Pilates.
Mm. Yeah, so it's an exercise system that's developed by Joseph Pilates almost a century ago. And then he incorporated a lot of different components like yoga and then some martial arts and then dancing throughout his career and then developed his own method of this exercise approach. And then um, Pilates exercise in general, it's really focusing on six principles. And then that's how it's different to some of the other exercise approaches. And then the first one is breathing. For each exercise, you need to breathe. And then, like, there is no single moment that you will be holding your breath. You are always breathing. And then the breathing pattern sometimes it can be challenged, like you reverse the breathing pattern so that it would challenge your core even more without using the momentum when you are breathing. Um, so that's the first principle.
which
And
which
yeah.
is huge. I just want to kind of stress how important the breathing principle is because even if you're not a wind player, breathing is crucial, absolutely crucial. And there are so many string players, guitar string players, pianists that tend to hold their breath and breathe very shallowly, which leads to whole other issues. So I think it's really important that you're incorporating the very, very, very core principle of breathing in this, and that you're challenging the system and the breathing system to actually improve. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Mhm. So that's breathing. And then the second principle is concentration. When you are doing all the exercises, you are always focusing on how you move and then the relationship of different body parts. And then because of most of the choreographies in Pilates, you are moving the entire body. There's no single moment you just move one joint. And then so that's kind of different to some of the other exercises out there. And then that's why Pilates can be a very good exercise for stress relief. We've mentioned about earlier, just because you need to concentrate a lot on the exercises so you won't be thinking too much of other stuff.
About all the other stuff in life, about that audition or that, yeah, that
uh,
concert, or oh my
yeah,
god, that lick that you can't play.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's the second principle. And then the third principle is called centering. That means whenever you are doing all the exercises, you are always engage your core, your powerhouse when you are doing other stuff. And I feel like that's very important because for musicians, when you are performing or even when you are just practicing, you will be staying in one position for a long time and then moving your arms or sometimes moving your legs, but then maintaining your trunk at a very stable position for a long time. And then where did that stability come from? You need your core to be strong in order to support yourself for that long period of time.
Yeah, and when your core is not stable, what happens is you end up compensating with the other muscle groups, and then that can set you up for injury because you're not using the core muscles that are supposed to be doing that strong stabilization, and you're trying to kind of hold on for dear life with everything else.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that's
exactly.
huge.
Yeah, so that's centering, and then the fourth principle is precision. So a lot of the Pilates choreography, they are very specific. Like at certain moments, you are moving certain joints. Maybe it's distally, your elbow, your wrist, your hand, or maybe it's your knees, your feet, and then sometimes it's like you fix the distal parts and then you just move your trunk or you just move your shoulder, you just move your hip at different moment, and then it's very precise because it has a huge dancing component in it.
Mm.
So it's a very precise movement, like very precise choreography is required in it.
which is great because also with musicians, everything is very precise. Hey, Devin, how are you? Everything
Hello,
is
good
very
morning.
precise, but it's precise in a very different way. And I'm always saying you have to get out of the precision and the positions that you're in at your instrument in some way, shape, or form. So that's really cool about Pilates is that it takes you out and pushes you into different things, but still with position because you're really using that whole neuromuscular component and that cognitive component in order to just change your position. So you get out of what is your norm at your instrument and get into something else. So it's great for retraining your
Yeah.
brain too.
Yeah, exactly. And then so that's the fourth. And then the fifth principle is control. It's like to be totally in control of the speed and then the tempo of the movement. It's not like a lot of time, like I said earlier, people are utilizing the momentum just in order to get into that position. And then so you are not really engaged the muscle to do the work. And then in Pilates, it's very hugely focused on the control component. So you are really using all your muscle to be in control of all the time, not utilizing the gravity to help you or not utilizing the momentum to help you. And then that's also very important when you are playing music instruments, even though you are at a very fast tempo, you always want to be in fully control of the instruments because guess what? The audience can hear the difference if you just throw it out and then
Yeah.
without control, people can hear the difference whether or not that's the case.
Right. And I think it's important when we talk about control too that it's control in calm energy and not control in that energy because it's the same way when you sit and you perform. So if you're feeling out of control or tense when you're performing, that comes across in your performance, and it's kind of the same thing. So I think it's if flies can teach you to have that control, but in a kind of calm, more meditative state as well, then that's really important, and that can carry over into performances.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
so the very last principle is flow. That means the exercise and like throughout the entire time is flowing smoothly. There's no single moment that's kind of robotic and then chopped off. And I also feel like that's really relevant to musician as well because obviously when you are performing, when you are playing, you want everything to flow smoothly. There's really no single moment that's really robotic or choppy. I guess like maybe sometimes like you want to maybe you want to really emphasize the rhythm or the tempo sometimes, but then that doesn't mean your body has to be robotic. Your body can still be very relaxed and then very smooth when you are um, playing in general.
No, that's true. That's very true. Now, I know that you talked last night about when we were chatting a little bit about the importance of the core stability. But the one thing that you said that I really, really loved was the secondary stabilizers. So you want to explain a little bit about that because that's one thing that is huge with musicians. Huge. So
Yeah. So in Pilates, they mention about um, powerhouse, and then the primary powerhouse is our core region, like from below our rib cage to above our pelvis. That's the core region or the core muscle is at, and then important for us to maintain and a proper upright posture. And then there is the secondary powerhouse, which is the head, neck, shoulder, the shoulder girdle scapular region. And then it mentioned a lot about the stability at that region and then initiate most of the movements of the arm from um, moving the secondary powerhouse, which is huge because most of the musicians they need to move their arms constantly when they are playing, and then you do need that proximal stability, you do need that engagement and the initiation of movement from the secondary powerhouse in order to really play effectively and then more comfortably.
and I think that's a huge thing too because what I find is that people will be either really unstable in their scapular area. So the scapular area is your shoulder blades, right? So Um, there's a certain amount of mobility that they should have and a certain amount of stability that they should have. And a lot of times they're either too loosey goosey or they're too kind of sucked down and there's not enough mobility in there. So either way is not, there's a balance and you want to be able to find that balance. And what I see a lot is even if you're having a problem in your hand or your wrist or your elbow, you really have to go all the way back up to the shoulder blade, that whole area, and figure out what's going on up there because it is absolutely contributing to what's going on down here. And it's the same thing with when people are at their instrument. So if somebody comes into me and has a problem with their thumb, I'm not at their and I'm looking at their technique. I'm not only looking at their thumb. I'm looking at what is going on at the shoulder girdle and at that scapula and in that neck and that whole posture because one thing will affect the other will affect the other. So crucial to have that strong powerhouse up there. Crucial, crucial, crucial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I love that. I love
exactly.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's very cool. So how is it different? Like, how is it different from yoga? Or I mean, there's so many different classes out there. You know, you've got bar, you've got yoga, you've got there's so many options out there. So it's kind of overwhelming,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So how is it?
Yeah, so I feel like the biggest focus of Pilates from many other exercises approach out there is that Pilates really focus on the core engagement throughout the whole time. And then it does have a little bit of flexibility addressed in certain choreographies, like of the movements, but then it's not as hugely mentioned, as hugely focused in Pilates compared to like yoga or like some of the bar classes because bar is kind of derived from ballet and so they do need that huge amount of range of motion and then flexibility. But then in Pilates, you focus a little bit of flexibility, but then it's huge. It has a huge focus on core stability, and then also holding in certain poses in different postures. Like sometimes you are laying down your stomach, you are crawling, you are laying down your back, you are kneeling, sometimes you are sitting, sometimes you are standing. You keep that core engagement in those different postures. So it's very functional. And then it has a lot of exercises to work on some strengthening and then some muscle endurance. So that's really part of it. That's different to some of the other exercise approaches.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
again, that's the whole core. I mean, both the shoulder core and the your regular core, your abdominal core, are just huge. When you think about watching some musicians play, and they're so hunched over, right? They're hunched over. You take a double bass, and you've got to come over it. You need that core stability in there. You need to have that engaged the whole time so that you can be at your best possible posture while you're contorting yourself at the same time. So I think that's really important. And I think the thing too is that as musicians, you don't need. And we talked about this again last night. You don't need power. You don't need to be like lifting heavy weight. It's not really. It's not really the goal of what your muscles need as a musician.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know.
Mhm. Yeah, so
So
it's like the nature of how musicians play, the movement requirement is very different. Um, for professional athletes, they need power. They need like really produce a very huge force within a very short period of time. Or sometimes they need very huge range of motion. For dancers or people doing martial arts, they need the range of motion to do certain movements. So like
yeah,
yoga or like some sort of personal training or CrossFit, those will be very good approaches for them. But then the physical demand for musicians is different. The physical demand for musicians is mostly endurance because they need to maintain a proper posture and that including their instruments and then play there for a very long period of time. So that's very different in nature. And just because of this difference in nature, that makes Pilates more relevant to musicians. But then, like we mentioned earlier as well, like as long as you are moving, you are exercising, it is better than nothing. Even though
Right.
you are more of a yoga fan, even if you are more of a fan of other types of exercises, it's still better than like not exercising at all. So like
Yeah.
we feel like Pilates is very relevant, but then that is just an option for you guys. But then as long as you do exercises like Heather mentioned earlier, that's better. That will make
Yeah.
your career better.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, again, exercise in any way, shape, or form is the most important thing. And today, we're talking about Pilates because you have a lot of experience with it, and with us talking, it seems like it's a really great thing for musicians to be doing. But any form of exercise is definitely the key. And I think I always say musicians need to think like athletes. They need to think like athletes in the respect that they need to care for their body, they need to do the appropriate exercises for their career as a musician. So you're right, when you talk about, many athletes need, that power and that quick force and that quick movement. Musicians don't need that, but they still need their muscles and their skeletal system to be as in tip top shape as possible because they're actually working longer hours at their sport, right? Than necessarily a professional athlete is. Like you go out and play a football game, it's, a couple hours. Now they're training and all that other stuff, but musicians don't typically train for their instrument. And I think that's an important thing that needs to be thought about is to train for your instrument and train in the best way possible for your instrument.
Yeah. Yes,
I think that's
totally.
key.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the things, talk a little bit about the ways to exercise with Pilates because Annie and I sort of started talking about this initially because I'm trying to come up with musician specific and instrument specific programs for you guys for exercise, and that's why I kind of was thinking Pilates is great. So there's, he had talked initially about the three different waves. So go ahead and tell people a little bit about the three different aspects of Pilates and how you can do it.
Yeah, sure. So we mentioned about like there are different classes. Some of the classes are purely based on mat or on the floor, like mat classes. And then usually those are the most affordable when you are looking for the prices or the classes online. And then they don't really require any equipment at all. And then the exercises are different poses you will be in, and then you use your body weight and then the gravity to be the resistance you are working against. And then it's a very good foundation to build up your core stability and then your primary secondary powerhouse, and then very important groundwork. And then in a Pilates studio, you will also have apparatus classes. You can either work on a chair, work on a Cadillac, or work on a reformer. They have
Mhm.
those classes because those apparatuses, they have springs, they have straps, and then you will be able to do exercises with a lot more variations. And then you will be moving your arms, your limbs, your legs while stabilizing your trunk. Sometimes it's the totally opposite. And a lot of the choreography are actually very similar to the movement pattern of musicians playing instruments. So apparatus classes will be something that's worth trying because it's usually people find them more interesting. And then just my personal perspective, I feel like that's very relevant to how musicians play.
Mhm.
And then also those are the different types of classes. And then you can also find group classes, and then sometimes you have like small class, maybe like 2 or 3 people per class. And then
Mhm.
sometimes you can find instructors, they are able to provide private sessions. And then in group classes, it's good to exercise and work out with a bunch of other people, and then you will be kept motivated. But then
Right.
sometimes private sessions is good because the instructors can know your need better and then see your strengths and your weaknesses to help you develop a better balance. And
Yeah.
so those are the different types of classes that you can find when you are looking into a Pilates studio. But then I would suggest to do a little bit of everything because each of them has its own benefits. So do a little bit of everything, you can get much more of it.
Right.
Mm.
And I think that's awesome. And I think for a lot of musicians who are traveling, and I know I have a lot of patients that are, traveling all over the place and to different, they gig with different symphonies, and they go off and they teach and they do master classes. So it's, they're traveling a lot. So I think in that respect, the floor work is great for them to do when they're away. And then also the privates, the groups are fun because you've got lots of people, and they again, like you said, they motivate each other. But the privates are really good. And if you end up doing like an individual session, you want to make sure that you tell your instructor what instrument you play and what positions that you are normally in. So, for guitarists, violinists, violists, you're looking to the left a lot. All right, your arm is up in this way. So you really want to make sure that you balance yourself out and come out of that position so that you're working into the opposite direction. Because what happens is that if you've done this for 40 years and you haven't worked into the opposite position, it's harder to move into that opposite position later on, and you do end up getting pain and symptoms. So that's a really good thing to do, is to, every once in a while work with somebody individually so that they can help you do certain things that get you out of the deforming positions that the instrument puts you in, so that you can rebalance yourself.
Yeah.
So I think
Mhm.
that's awesome. I think that's
Mhm.
awesome. So you said that you have some clips of yourself. So
Yeah.
tell everybody how far, like, you're a few months away from getting your certificate. Getting your certificate to be a Pilates instructor is huge. I had no idea.
Mhm.
It's huge. You said it's what, a 6 month program?
Yeah, like my program is about 6 months. That's
Yeah.
the most intensive one. And then some of the programs, they have more spread out of a schedule. And then for some people, they complete their training from those programs that it might take them like 2 years or 3 years because they do that maybe only on weekends or something. But then mine is more intensive, so it completes in 6 months.
So it can
And
be even longer.
yeah, if you don't commit enough hours per week, that will be even
Right.
longer.
It's
Yeah.
like being back in school and having to do our clinicals. We have to
Yeah.
do so many hours of clinical in order to get our degree.
That's exactly the same
It,
because part of the requirements is you need to attend certain classes, you need to teach certain hours,
hours.
and then so that's exactly the same.
So you have some clips of you doing some certain things that you said that you would be willing to post in the group for us to kind of see, which I think that would be
Yeah.
awesome. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that's part of our assignment to complete this program. I already have that, so
That would
yeah,
be awesome. That would
yeah.
be cool. So, do you want to tell people what your plan is with Steven and what Steven does?
Yeah, so Steven is a guy in Austin, Texas, and then he has his own studio doing physical therapy and Pilates. And then because in Austin it's a town like live music is very, very big there, and then they have a lot of musicians there. And then so he has been working with some musicians in his professional career, and then um, he's doing things trying to make Pilates like more being more aware by the therapy world by PTs and OTs. And then he and I have a lot of connections and a lot of collaborations. And then, in fact, later this year, I will be moving to Austin to work for him, and I look forward to even more collaboration with him, and then I will be able to provide more values, more insights that I can share to this group.
That's awesome. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all going to kind of be working together to come up with some programs for musicians as well. So, that's down in the future, but it's something that's in our brains just because we think it's an important thing and an option for you guys that will hopefully help. Again, there's so many different options, and you have to find what's right for you and what feels good for you and what works best for you. So the goal is to, get a program that you're going to do and that you're going to love and that you're going to enjoy and that's going to have the most benefit for you so that you can stay healthy and stay at your instrument. So, we'll keep you posted on where we're going with all that fun stuff. But yeah, it'll be good. I think it'll be great. So, Devin, thank you for watching. Do you have any questions? Have you ever done Pilates? Give him a minute to respond. I don't know what the delay is like. And I don't know what I know. I'm trying to figure out where to look on the camera again. I keep looking at you, Andy. So if people are watching this and my eyes look funny, it's because I'm looking at Andy on my screen.
I'm probably the same.
But see, you look totally normal to me. But I know people say you're supposed to look specifically at some spot on your camera, so it doesn't look like you're not paying attention to who you're talking to. I think I've given up on technology stuff. If it weren't for Andy last night, I don't know that we'd be on here because he understands all the technology stuff.
Okay.
All right. Any other thoughts, Andy?
Yeah. Feel like that's pretty much it. And like we mentioned several times earlier, the really key thing is really to get active and then really to move. Whichever approach or whichever exercise you choose, that's still better than not moving at all. But then we just found out Pilates would be one approach that's more relevant to you guys, maybe compared to some of the other approaches. So this is just like introducing an option for you guys to look into.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's, us being in that therapy entrepreneur group is great because that's where I met Steven. That's where you met Steven too, right?
Yeah.
And Steven's a great therapist and he and his wife are, have the whole studio of Pilates and everything. They really incorporate it into their rehab with their patients and their physical therapy practice as well. So that kind of got my brain thinking, and then talking to you, kind of thinking, because I'm always thinking, well, what's a great exercise that musicians will want to do that is really going to incorporate what they need. So after talking to Steven and after talking with you, I was like, this sounds really cool. So that's why we're on here sharing. And so if anybody has any experiences that they want to share about this and any questions, please comment below and we'll get back to you and we'll respond. And I guess that's it. Thank you for coming on, Andy. I totally appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This is a fun experience.
It is fun. And for anybody that doesn't know, Andy's the one that does the doodles, which is really cool. We call him in our therapy group, we call him the PT Doodler.
That's actually the name of my business. So
well, that's your name in the group anyway. So.
Yeah.
So he does awesome doodles, which is super fun. And you've done them for a lot of other therapists and a lot of other things too. I've seen them in our group. So I want to thank him for doing those doodles for us because they're fun and they make life interesting. So
yeah, I found it interesting as well. So that's why I really enjoy doing that. So
gets that creative side of you, right?
Exactly. OT, I'm also an OT, so
yes. OTs like to be creative, think outside of the box, right?
Exactly.
All right, so I'm gonna get going. Andy, thank you so much.